elephant is a community animal, right? It's a herd animal. They live together in large families. They help each other. In nature documentaries, you see that one elephant dies, the entire herd mourns the elephant. If someone is sick, they help them. And that's what it takes with mental health as well. We're trying to build this whole community mental health aspect in workplaces, where we want to build a community of people who are sensitized on mental health. So once you educate people on mental health, they're able to take care of their own mental health, but also become anchors for the mental health of the people around them. And so that's really how we want to create this ripple effect, where one candle, lights 10 other candles, and then they light 10 other candles. And that's how we really want to, it's a slow start, but steadily we want to create this kind of movement where people are open to talking about mental health. It's not a taboo topic. It's not something that strikes a death knell. And so, people, once they're open to talking about mental health, will also be more willing to engage in seeking help for their own mental health and helping other people when required, because people are okay to ask for help. And one of the misperceptions about mental health is that things have to be really, really, really bad before you seek help. But that's not the case. You don't need to wait till things are so bad that, you need to be, rescued, so to say, whether it's through therapy, medication, whatever it may be.
Welcome to Open Tales, part of the ATRIOS dialogue series. Today, I am speaking with Abha Dandekar, founder and CEO of Elephant in the Room Consulting. Abha's work is dedicated to bringing mental health into the heart of workplace culture, reducing stigma, building resilience, and creating organizations where people can truly thrive. In this conversation, we'll explore her journey, the importance of opening up about the elephant in the room, and what the future of workplace well-being could look like. Healing begins with being honest, being open, and being courageous to speak about things. This platform that we have is where we speak about struggles and strengths. Thank you, Abha, for agreeing to be part of this conversation.
Thank you for having me here.
So you've been you started your career as a corporate HR, and now you are the founder of a mental health and well-being organization focusing on workspace. How would you like to introduce yourself?
The mental health and well-being part of me is fairly well known at this point. But I think for me, what is my conduit to mental health and well-being for myself personally is my animals. So I would probably introduce myself as someone who has quite a bit of peace of mind, which I think I've had to work very hard at over the years. But I think a big reason why I've managed to reach this point at this stage in my life is because my work is fulfilling. It gives me a lot of meaning. I know that the work that I do, goes beyond profitability and goes beyond business metrics. It helps them, but it also, actually touches lives and impacts people. So I think I get a lot of fulfillment from my work. But personally, I think I also get a lot of fulfillment by being with my dogs, by spending time in nature, by listening to the wind in the trees. And so I think as a composite human being, I think my well-being as a person comes from working with things and living with things that give me meaning to my life. So I think that is how I would probably introduce myself.
Wow. I would love to learn more about your love for animals and nature during this, through this conversation. But I'm very curious to know that your organization's name is Elephant in the Room Consulting. Why did you choose the name Elephant in the Room?
So there's a funny story about it actually. When we started off, I knew what I wanted to do in terms of what the mission of the organization was, how we wanted to work, what our approach would be. I honestly had everything in place except the name itself. And so I was working with an agency for our logo, and then I asked them to also help me with the name because I kept drawing a blank. And we went through 3 or 4 iterations of what we can call it, and they came up with a whole bunch of suggestions, and I kept vetoing all of them because none of them really struck a chord. But the one thing I kept repeating to give them an idea or to give them a brief saying, what am I trying to encapsulate in the name that we choose, is I want to talk about how how mental health is the elephant in the room. Now, can we find a name that encapsulates that? And so we did a whole bunch of back and forth. And then finally, I reached a point where I said, why are we not just calling it elephant in the room? Because that's exactly what we want to do. We want to open up conversations around mental health. We want to get people to address the fact that, mental health is the elephant in the room. room, but we shouldn't ignore it. It's okay to address it and talk about it. It's okay to seek help when you need help. And so that's when I decided that elephant in the room consulting is the perfect name for what we want to do. It captures the ethos of our work very perfectly. And beyond that, I think the elephant as an animal explains mental health very well because of two reasons. One is that the elephant is a community animal, right? It's a herd animal. They live together in large families. They help each other. In nature documentaries, you see that one elephant dies, the entire herd mourns the elephant. If someone is sick, they help them. And that's what it takes with mental health as well. We're trying to build this whole community mental health aspect in workplaces, where we want to build a community of people who are sensitized on mental health. So we really are looking at the workplace as a herd, as people who are looking out for each other, who are taking care of each other, who are keeping safe spaces for each other. And so I think the elephant as an animal works very well as an illustrative example. But I think also taking a step beyond that, we don't really have mental health education in India. When we're growing up, we're not really taught about mental health in schools. And I think that is very critical. A large part of the work that we do is just educating people on mental health so that they understand mental health and are able to then, manage their own mental health better in healthier manners. And so the elephant, there's that parable about the four blind men and the elephant, where each one is touching a different body part. And, one of them touches the tail and says it's a rope. Another touches the, leg and says it's a tree. And I think, we tend to have a similar approach towards mental health, where each of us understand one section of it. And because we're not taught really what mental health truly means, it leads to a lot of stigma, a lot of prejudice, and it all comes from misunderstanding. So what we really want to do through the work that we do in order to encourage people to seek help and not suffer in silence is to open up conversations around mental health. And how can we do that? By educating people, by showing them the entire picture, by showing them the whole elephant, so that people aren't seeing bits and pieces and then guessing at the whole story. We really want to help people understand the entire picture.
Lovely. So we also, I'm happy as I have different conversations with leaders and even youngsters. I think the comfort and speaking up about mental health is increasing, is improving. Now, but you chose workplace mental health specifically. Why was that?
A bunch of reasons. One is that, again, we work on building communities of people who are sensitized on mental health and able to create safe spaces for each other. So the workplace works as a community because we spend a very large part of our week at work, right? So the people at work do have a very large effect on our mental health. Our managers have a large impact on our mental health. The organization as an institution, its policies, processes, structures, those also impact our well-being. So I think it's very important to then work with organizations to create this transformation where well-being becomes a core part of business strategy. Because if you have employees who are well taken care of, if you have employees whose well-being is taken care of at work, then it leads to a whole bunch of positive impact for the organization, from increased retention, reduced attrition. It helps an organization with the employer brand. There's a greater feeling of motivation, of productivity, fewer sick days. And if managers are educated and sensitized on how to have certain conversations more sensitively, I think it leads to a healthier atmosphere at work. And then that, has a ripple effect, because if a person's well-being at work is taken care of, and if we can, work on educating the working age population on mental health and how to take care of their own mental health, and also, the mental health of people around them, or look at, understanding the well-being of people around them and how to create safe spaces, then we also want to create a ripple effect, because what you learn, education is transferable, right? So when we work in company A, for example, and we've, successfully educated that audience on mental health, not only does that company become a safe space for its own employees, but these employees also take their education and transfer it into their own personal lives. So then they actually become beacons for mental health in their own communities, whether it's their family, whether it's their children going through things, or, the working age population is also often caregivers for aging parents, where incidence of mental health issues is higher. So once you educate people on mental health, they're able to take care of their own mental health, but also become anchors for the mental health of the people around them. And so that's really how we want to create this ripple effect, where one candle, lights 10 other candles, and then they light 10 other candles. And that's how we really want to, it's a slow start, but steadily we want to create this kind of movement where people are open to talking about mental health. It's not a taboo topic. It's not something that strikes a death knell. And so, people, once they're open to talking about mental health, will also be more willing to engage in seeking help for their own mental health and helping other people when required, because people are okay to ask for help.
Right, right, right. So you speak about happiness
Yeah.
at workplace. How do you measure workplace mental health?
So I think from a business angle, there are multiple ways to measure the well-being of a workplace. It definitely affects your culture as an organization, because if an organization is investing in the well-being of its workforce, like I said earlier, you will notice, lower attrition, a greater sense of belonging. People's tenures in organizations like that tend to be longer. And it also does impact the employer brand, because if an organization is known as an organization that invests in the well-being of its workforce, then more people want to work there as well. So it helps with attracting the right kind of talent as well. And this is a movement I've really seen post-COVID, where, given the new generation of workforce, given the fact that Gen Zs are entering the workforce now, given the fact that people, post-COVID don't only look at compensation as a metric when they're entering a new job. They also look at some of the intangible aspects like the culture, they look at work-life balance, they look at, what the environment around them is. So some of these, these are now factors which people are considering more and more in the decision making when it comes to, looking for a new job. So if an organization is known as an employer who takes care of its employees, who's invested in the well-being of its employees, I think it helps build a healthier organization. It helps build a more resilient organization as well. And eventually it will help build the kind of organization that is able to weather external shocks, because the people in the organization have become resilient because they're all working on their well-being and creating those safe spaces for each other in the context of that community.
So you're saying that organizations which are typically capital focused, and we're talking of well-being, they go hand in hand and they're not necessarily counterproductive.
They do go
they're not
hand in hand.
Yeah,
Yes,
they go
definitely.
They go hand in hand. Okay, and and when you say organization is basically a group of individuals which are leaders, founders, and also the employees. So when you approach, or when you start having these conversations with organizations, what's your approach towards inculcating a culture of well-being?
So our approach is a little different in that we understand that, well-being isn't something that happens overnight. It is a process that takes time, right? Like I said earlier, we don't really have much mental health education in our country. So you're really starting from scratch. So you have to approach it, step by step, layer by layer. So the way we work is we take a ladder approach. We start with basic mental health education so that everyone's on the same page when it comes to understanding mental health. And simple aspects like, how to understand your own mental health, if you need help, who to go to seek help, what does that process look like. So just demystifying the whole process so that it becomes less intimidating for people. So that's the basic step we started. And then we build further layers on that, whether it's working with individuals to seed additional skill sets, to, promote healthier working practices and behaviors, to working with managers to seed additional skill sets so that they can handle, stressors in their teams, handle their workforces more sensitively. We also then work with organizations and institutions themselves, saying, can we help you institutionalize some well-being metrics? Can we work on creating a well-being policy for you? Or can we review your processes and SOPs to see if any of them can become more well-being friendly? So we really take a graded approach, starting with working with employees or starting with educating employees, but then eventually also working with managers, working with HR teams, working with leaders, and then looking at it through an institutional lens, saying, can we make well-being a part of the HR policy for your organization and sort of integrate it in your business practices?
Correct. And a large part of this is actually opening up. So what is opening up for you personally? And what is opening up from a workplace context?
So I think opening up for me personally is, so I am a very introverted person. So I've had to challenge myself and step out of my comfort zone quite a bit. So even doing this podcast, for example, I am very shy. I don't really like putting myself out there. I'm always happier being in the shadows, or being in the background and working but not talking. But I realize that if I want to do this, my goal is to open up conversations around mental health in workplaces. If this is what I have decided to do, then I need to push myself and step out of my comfort zone as well. So I have been working, with my therapist over the last many years on how to tackle my social anxiety. And I think with the tools that she's given me, I have been putting myself in more and more, stressful situations for me. And I think eventually, because I have a very clear goal in mind, I have over time been able to handle such situations a little better. But for me, it's a constant push. This is not what I'm naturally comfortable doing. I'm not an outgoing person by nature. So I have had to push myself out of my comfort zone, redefine my boundaries many, many times, to be able to then, put out the work that I do and be able to talk about it and actually accomplish the goals that I set for myself. And I think from a workplace perspective as well, it's similar. Honestly, because, working on well-being isn't something that's already institutionalized, and culturally, it's not something we really talk about in India. I think similarly, organizations need to also take themselves out of a comfort zone, because we need to recognize that times are changing, that expectations are changing, employee expectations are changing. And so this is something that will help organizations become more resilient. This is something that will help organizations. We're living in a very uncertain world right now. If you look at, there are so many stressors external as well from an organizational perspective. Climate change is affecting weather patterns. It's a disrupt supply chains. The geopolitical climate is ever changing. So there's a lot of things that happen that affect businesses and affect business outcomes, right? It's not simple sort of cost revenue calculations anymore. And so if an organization is investing in the well-being of their people, then whatever happens, the people in an organization are able to weather shocks better because they have become resilient as individuals. And when you work on building resilience in individuals, it makes the company resilient as a whole as well. And so I think it's very critical for organizations to recognize that working on well-being is important. It's an important investment. It's not, it's always considered a little bit of a good to have. I think that perception needs to change, where investing in well-being is a must-have. It's critical for organizations to continue growing, given the challenges, global challenges.
Right.
And so I think organizations also need to take themselves out of their comfort zone and keep reinventing and understand the need for that.
Yeah. Ma'am, it takes immense courage to share your personal story, and thank you for doing that, because usually when anybody goes through a certain struggle, they believe that they're doing it by themselves. But when people like you step up and share your story, you give them hope to say that you're not alone in this journey. It is possible to overcome. So it's so powerful that you have stepped up and shared what you have shared. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
So I would love to take a peek into your childhood, because obviously I see that from I know you and I've seen the work, but how has childhood been for you? What's that beautiful place that you keep revisiting?
I think my childhood, honestly, the largest memories of my childhood are again, centered around being out in nature. So we used to go, we have a farmhouse out in the mountains, and my parents used to take us there every weekend ever since we were little kids. Yes. So I grew up swimming in ponds on weekends and, spending time with dogs. And it reached a point where I actually had a phase of rebellion as a teenager, where I said, I don't want to go with my family every weekend. I want to be here with my friends. And that's when mall culture was coming in as well. The first few malls had opened in Bombay. I said, I want to go with my friends. I want to go to malls. I want to go to restaurants. I think I did it for 2-3 weekends. My parents let me. And then I went back to them and said, I think I'm bored now. This is okay once in a while, but I need that to recharge and refuel and to be able to go back to school and have a productive week. I think I need that little bit of greenery around me. So I think my childhood, it has been defined by my love for animals, love for nature. And I think that has contributed a lot to my well-being as well. I still occasionally need a time out, where even here, I'm lucky I have a view outside. If I look up from my desk, I can see a sea of trees, which is a blessing to have that kind of view in Mumbai. So even now when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I do shut my laptop and just look at the trees for 5 minutes to rejuvenate. But I think that that's the biggest blessing my parents have given me.
Yeah.
But beyond that, there was a lot of family, there was a lot of community. I was very close to my grandfather growing up as well, so he has inculcated a lot of values in me as well. So I think a lot of my work ethic, a lot of the resilience, the ability to bounce back when you fail, and the ability to fix a target and then take whatever, do whatever it takes to reach there, whether it's taking help from other people, a lot of humility my grandfather taught me as well. So, humbly asking for help, or, understanding that you can't do things yourself, understanding that when things feel overwhelming, it's okay to talk to other people. So even now with Elephant in the Room, honestly, the work that I'm doing, I don't think I could have done any of it without my team. My team is very fantastic. And because they are also mental health practitioners, a lot of them.
Yeah.
If I'm having a bad day, if I'm having a tough day or an overwhelming day, then I talk to them and I say, I am going through this. I'm not able to perform. I'm not able to function to my best today. So I think that kind of transparency really helps then build those inroads with my team, where they understand that I'm not at my best today, and they give me that consideration. They give me that concession as well. So I think, it's important to model what you need for the team to be able to do that as well. And so a lot of this my family taught me, saying it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to ask for help, there's no shame in it. You cannot always be performing optimally, but on days you're not, it's okay to say it.
That's nice. So you did in the beginning of this conversation also, you brought about animal and nature. You again spoke about it now. I'm a strong believer of animal, nature, and well-being. What is your take, and is it, and how, and does it reflect also in your work in terms of what you're doing right now?
I think it definitely does. So, one of the things I've learned over time is, before I started working in the mental health space, I had a very conventional definition of spirituality, where for me it meant meditating, or doing, things like sound healing and things like that. And I said, none of this really interests me, so maybe I'm not a spiritual person. So I spent my whole life labeling myself as not spiritual, because I only understood a very narrow definition of spirituality. But I think later on, as I started working in the mental health space and I started encountering more people and, more diverse backgrounds, I realized that there are many forms of spirituality. It's not just, doing what you traditionally believe is spiritual. So for me, I think that's where I get my fulfillment. If I spend time with my dogs, if I spend time, staring at a water body or looking out at trees, listening to birds chirping when I wake up, I think for me that is my meditation in the morning. So I think that has really changed my definition of what well-being means over time, and made me understand, or helped me understand, the fact that it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. Yeah. Everyone has different things that make them fulfilled. And so when you talk to people, when you're engaging with people, you cannot be prescriptive saying this works for me, so it will work for you. You need to really understand where they're coming from, and understand that different people have different things, and different things that drive them in life. And so I think it has helped me work with people better and understand, place myself in people's shoes better. So I think it has definitely helped me build a little more empathy, I hope, as I do this work.
Perfect. Now, when it comes to growing up, we all try to fit in, right? So maybe when you're much younger, you're very free, and then you're told to behave in a certain way. School trains you in a certain way, and then when you interact, you meet new people, you keep creating a lot of flares, and there is a part of you which you're trying to hide as well. Mm-hmm. Did you have any such experience when you were growing up, where you felt the need to hide or conceal some part of you?
I think I did. Because again, like I said, I didn't want to go out shopping. I didn't want to go out for movies. I am still quite a solitary person. I need time by myself eventually. And I think I've always been that way. And when you're a teenager, my peers didn't always understand that. So there were periods of time when people didn't understand, they'd say, why are you running away, every weekend? Or why do you not want to come out with us? Or, simple things like, why aren't you talking on the phone with me? And I'd say, but I spent all day at school with you. Do we have anything left to say? So simple things like that, because, it's different. Right. And so I think there was a time when I really tried. I made a very big effort to be more social, to be more outgoing, to do things. And then I think sometime when I was about 16, 17 years old, I realized this isn't working for me. I'm not happy with who I am. I don't feel fulfilled. I feel like a lot of what I'm doing is very performative because it's for other people's expectations of me, but I'm not finding joy in what I do. So I think there was a time, little before I turned adult, where I had to introspect and say, who do I want to be the rest of my life? Because honestly, I'm feeling like an imposter right now. Yes, I am a little more popular than I used to be, but is that what drives me? Is that what is motivating me? Is it making me happy? And I realized it isn't. So I made a conscious decision at that point to stay true to who I am myself. And beyond that, I think I stopped apologizing for what makes me me. I used to always apologize, saying, oh, I'm like this, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm different, I'm sorry. So I think I stopped apologizing for what makes me me. I found that there is, you need different kinds of people in the world, and this is the kind of person I am, and that's good. That's also a good thing. You can't have a homogeneous group of people. It doesn't work. You don't get new things from there. And so I stopped apologizing for the things that make me different. And now I think people in my life have learned to embrace me for it. So, simple things like I'm very bad at staying in touch with my friends, but my friends now know that about me. So they make the effort, and I truly appreciate them for doing that. So once in a while, they'll call me because they know I'm not wired in a way it'll occur to me saying I'm driving by myself. So let me call someone and catch up. I'm not wired that way. So now, it's luckily people in my life have started understanding what makes me tick. And so, I am very grateful that they have now embraced that, and now they make the effort, and where I can, I make the effort, and they acknowledge and embrace that as well. So I think, hopefully a little bit of wisdom with age as well. But I think just learning to be me and not apologizing for it has been a very powerful tool in my life.
Yes. And at times, the work that you do also teaches a lot about you. So, and your work is a lot about introspection as well. So, how has that taught you more about yourself?
I think it's helped me understand that I don't know how to put it. Like I said earlier, there are many different kinds of people in the world, right? And we tend to gravitate towards the kind of people we identify with. I think through my work, it's helped me understand other people more, so that I can understand more diverse experiences, so that I can understand diverse viewpoints. And so it's actually expanded my world a lot, because not just in a professional context, but even in a personal context, I now have the kind of people or relationships in my life that I may not have had about 5-7 years ago before I started doing this work, because my life was very insular. It was, defined by the boundaries of what I knew, what I was comfortable with, what I grew up with. Like I was born in Bandra, I've lived in Bandra my entire life. So that those were the definitions, that I had a box around myself. And then I understood that context. But I think now doing this work and meeting so many different kinds of people, it's helped me understand many different kinds of people. So now, I have a lot of friendships, I have a lot of acquaintances, a lot of relationships where people not from the same context as me, people with different considerations, I'm able to be more empathetic, understand that point of view, see where they're coming from. And I think I've become less diagnostic and prescriptive, and more of a listener by doing this work. And I think it's definitely added value to my life.
Yeah. And when you look at mental health as a topic, it starts as a lot internal, because you are dealing with it, but you over a period realize that it is not just internal. You need to take external support, but external support is not necessarily all trained and aware of how to cope or support you. So how can people go about supporting someone who acknowledges that they have a certain challenge that they're going with in terms of mental health?
I think if someone comes to you and says they're going through a certain situation, the best thing you can do is listen without any prejudice. Don't go with preconceived notions. Try to actively let go of, the biases that creep in because of your experiences in life, and listen with an open mind, because honestly, most of the time, all people are asking for is a safe space to confide in. Sometimes people may ask, look at you as a sounding board. Sometimes people may come to you because they want advice as well. But don't assume what they're coming to you for, and don't assume, you understand what they're going through. Actually take the time and effort to make yourself a blank slate and listen, and then, depending on what they're saying, then respond accordingly. So I think the biggest thing is to let go of your assumptions and just become a clean slate, so that whoever is talking to you can talk to you really truly, and you're actually listening. You're not just, hearing what they're saying, but you're also listening to what they're saying. because then you can really be there for what they came to you for.
And do you also ask, so that could be the first contact, right? But then you want to check on that person again. So do you have that conversation of how often you want to do that? Do you be very transparent, or you just quietly be by that person? So what would your suggestion be?
So what I would personally do is ask the person, not assume, because again, different people have different things that work for them. And if someone comes to me, it's because they saw a certain, value that I can add to whatever they're going through, whether it's just being there for them or whether it's just being a physical body in the room with them, whatever it may be. They saw that some value in coming and talking to me. So I think instead of assuming what that value may have been, it's best to just ask. It's very simple to ask, saying, would you like me to check in on you periodically? Do you want me to just be there for you? Would you like me to approach you, or would you like to approach me? So figure out the semantics, talk to the person. When, the best thing is to ask and not assume, because that's when you can really truly be there for someone.
Yeah. And how does that look at a workplace?
At a workplace as well, a similar tactic works, because the work that we're trying to do, honestly, through Elephant in the Room, is open up conversations around mental health, right? And once that happens, once those conversations are opened up, then you are able to talk about mental health better, because you have the skill set, you have the tools to also be an active listener, and to have, there's two things. One is if you need help as an individual and you want to talk to someone, and the second aspect is if you are an individual who someone comes to saying, I'm going through certain things, and someone wants to confide in you. So the work that we do at Elephant in the Room really builds skills for both things. One is to seek help, but the other one is to be there for someone, to create a safe space for someone. And so it all starts with education, and it all starts with just being a blank slate and let someone talk. Opening up conversation means you let someone talk without assuming, and then you don't know what direction it will take. But to really just actively listen and then do what is being asked for, because people usually come and talk to you about the mental health because they're struggling, right? So if you, it usually, most of the times, it comes with an ask attached, and that may be said or unsaid. So if you really want to be there for someone, if you want to hear the things that they aren't saying as well, or it's good to listen with an open mind, and then if you have any questions, to clarify, so that you can actually be there for them in a realistic manner.
And given the work that you're doing, how do you see this pay? How do you see workplace mental health evolving over the next 5 years?
I think there's a lot of potential, because organizations are realizing the need to invest in well-being, and I think employees are asking for more from their from their workplaces, from their employers as well, and so we're seeing this movement post-COVID, and I think it's definitely on the uprise as well, where people are very vocal about the need for certain determinants of well-being. Whether it's simple things like a place where they can lie down at work or have quiet time at work, to work-life balance, to different things depending on the industry, depending on the company, depending on individuals. But there is a definite trend here, and I think one of the most promising things, and this may be a little bit of a more contrary opinion, but I think the fact that there are so many younger generations coming into their workforce is a very promising thing for the future of work. Because one thing about Gen Zs is that they're not afraid to ask for what they want. And I think that is very, very empowering. I think it shows tremendous promise and potential. So I feel like if organizations are able to recognize that and create that movement, then it will lead to a lot of strength for the organization, because there is empowerment. Through empowering your people, it also empowers an organization. So I think I see that change happening slowly over time, and I think it's only going to grow exponentially.
Beautiful. And as a closing remark, or maybe a call to action, for anybody who's watching this and who's going through a tough time at work, how does the person understand if they are going through something which is related to mental well-being, workplace mental well-being?
So I think if anyone is facing certain stressors that over for a prolonged period of time, say 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, is affecting their ability to function in a day-to-day life. So this could be stressors, it could be certain thoughts weighing on their mind, but if someone, it could be, elevated levels of anxiety, elevated heartbeats, but if someone is going through something that is affecting their ability to function, as what is their normal, then I think that is a good point to seek help, to go to a counselor, go to a therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, whoever it may be, and seek help, because we don't want anyone to suffer in silence. And one of the misperceptions about mental health is that things have to be really, really, really bad before you seek help. But that's not the case. You don't need to wait till things are so bad that you need to be rescued, so to say, whether it's through therapy, medication, whatever it may be. You can also help build resilience and really tackle issues before they get that bad. So it helps to go to therapy, to go seek help, whether it's talking to someone you trust, whether it's going to a professional. I think that depends on people's comfort level. But I think it's a good idea to go before things get worse, and really be proactive about seeking help, because it's in your own favor, it's to your own benefit. And why should anyone suffer more than they need to if there is something someone can do about it? So I think preventive mental health is very, very important. I have been going to the same therapist since I was in my early 20s. It's been about 12 odd years now. And when I'm going through more things, I go to her more frequently. When I'm going through, when my life is a little more stable, I go to her less frequency. But not once in the last over a decade have I stopped going to her, because I think that top up is very important. And because I've been working with her patiently for so long, she's given me the tools and the skill sets to be able to deal with stressful situations on my own and to put me out of my comfort zone as well. So I think seeking help is very important early on. When you recognize that you need help, don't wait till things are very, very bleak to seek help, because you don't deserve to suffer for no reason. It's not fair, it's not right.
Yeah. I remember reading something about resilience, because we spoke about resilience. I mean, a normal assumption is resilience is about bouncing back and behaving as if nothing just happened. But what it said is that resilience is about consistent resistance to giving up. I think that is resilience. And mental health is actually now right in the center of how workplace has to be. And and the work that you are doing helps build resilient individuals and resilient organization and workspaces. It's quite powerful. So thank you so much, Abha, for all the work that you do, and thank you for sharing honest, unfiltered, you. And it was fantastic talking to you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure chatting with you as well.
Super. Thank you so much.
Thank you.